All right. Thank you, everybody who's been waiting. Um, we are now live on YouTube. Thank you for joining me today. I am Jaren Dorman, Design Community Manager here at Gravity Sketch. And today we are going to be doing just some free sketching in Gravity Sketch. And I'm going to try and show you just some quick tips for just generally sketching in Gravity Sketch, being quick and free with your sketching. I think a lot of the other content, live sketching sessions that we've done have shown a lot of very fine-tuned modeling, much more in depth, like just very hardcore surfacing, sub-D modeling. And so today's mission is to kind of just focus a little bit more on just sketching in Gravity Sketch. you know, it kind of goes back to the early days of Gravity Sketch, I think too, where you're just kind of sketching out really rough ideas to get things out of your head and into 3D as quickly and as intuitively as possible. So we're just going to do a little bit of that today. It's probably not going to be as long of a session today. Because it's really about speed and simply sketching. And so feel free to ask questions along the way during the live. I'll be checking the comments periodically to answer any of your questions. And so we'll leave it with that. Let me just make sure I got my desktop mirrored up here so I can see everything. Someone says hello from Turkey. Hello, how are you? Hello back from Austin, Texas. All right. Cool. Well, I think I'm just gonna start by showing just a few quick tips and tricks for doing some sketching in Gravity Sketch, and then we're just gonna start sketching something. I have a couple ideas of things in mind, but nothing really concrete, and I think things tend to work out better that way. So I sort of covered this through a tips video earlier this week, but I just want to quickly go over it again. One of the cool things that you can do to make your scene look a little more sketchy, especially it's good for when you're taking screenshots as well, but you can actually change your background to a black environment. And if you make your stroke basically bright white, you can really get your sketch to pop in your scene. But you'll notice that there's like still some shadows on your stroke, and that's because the material that we have set right now is the basic material. We have a bunch of different material options here. If we change it to the flat material, this basically removes all of the shadows and all of the values off of the object. So it's still a 3D object, but it's just being shaded as one color. And so when we draw in 3D, it looks just like a flat stroke, but as we move around, we can tell that it's still 3D. So the cool thing with this is that you can do these sketches in space, and it looks very gestural. It has some form to it, and it's got some shape, but it's 3D, and so you can take take a screenshot here, and if we just, let me actually do this really quick. Let me try this. And get rid of the shadows, no shadows. We're going to get rid of the world axes. So it's just purely this sketch. So we can just going to take a screenshot. You can see here, it looks just like a flat sketch. So if you can take multiple views of our object. It's all in 3D. You get the point. So, and then on the reverse side, we can, change our environment to an all-white environment, kind of how we had it before. And looks it's kind of a lot. So might want to make it maybe a slight gray if it's too much to look at. In VR, sometimes a full white space is kind of a lot to take in, but you can see our sketch totally disappears unless the menu's behind it. So I'm just going to change our stroke to a black stroke here. But I want to just start sketching. Well, before we start sketching something, let me just show you another thing. So another cool technique that you can do is you can sketch in planar mode. So right now we have this plane here, and so anything I sketch will attach to the plane. And so let's see there. So this is the complete center of the scene. And so and how I'm moving that plane, let me just get the world axis back here so I can see it. So right now I'm moving this plane around, and my stroke is basically snapping to that plane. So wherever I put that plane, I'll be able to sketch on that plane, as you can see. And so if I am in planar mode, on this stroke, if I move the stroke, it will remain planar, no matter which way I move it. So if I move it this way, it's still constrained to its own almost its own plane. And so that can be very useful, but maybe you might decide, well, I want to start moving this around dimensionally. So if you select it and you go into edit mode, you can switch planar off, and basically now you can move all the points in space, and so you can position them 3D how you want them. So you can start, the point of this is that you can start in 2D. So say you want to sketch a car, and you want to basically get some sort of profile going on. You get your A pillar, B pillar, and all that stuff going, right? Let's see, forgive my car sketching here. Just trying to show you an example that you can start in this way, and you can very much go right into 3D soon after this, showing the example that I just showed, using the example I just showed, where you basically can start in this 2D way of working, and then move to a more dimensional way of working. So one thing also, if you want to start pulling things out, which is I didn't do with that car, is you want to make sure you have mirror turned on, so that if you want to take this sketch and start working in 3D, this is actually mirrored on itself. You wouldn't know it because it's currently in the dead center of the scene. But as soon as you go into edit mode, see it's still constrained. But if we turn planar off, we can then pull these points around and start dimensionally editing our sketch. So you know, say we want to, let's just go ahead and do a backpack here. Do some lines just to suggest our backpack here. And not sure what that line's going to be, but you know, we'll figure it out. You know, we can just be free with what we're doing here in 2D, almost as if we were in sketching on paper. You know, be as free with it as you normally would be on paper, as you're just trying to find a form. And you're trying to discover something new. And you know, we can move our sketch around. Maybe we want this to be a little more specific. And got, you know, a little handle here. We're just indicating all of the main parts of this bag. And we've got, you know, of course, the straps. Right? So, you know, we've got our bag profile here. And if we wanted, we could take this bag and do another version of it. So we can delete that sketch. Maybe you want to draw a different line here for that. Maybe we want to remove this. I was thinking it was a side pocket, so we could just remove that little detail. And we want maybe a little bit more of a minimalist look here. Something like that. And you can just start playing around. And so the beautiful thing is this, keep in mind, the time I'm spending on these sketches are probably about the same amount of time I would spend on a normal 2D sketch. So I'm just like, you know, just sketching some strokes here. And basically just finding something interesting. You know, getting little details, you know, thinking about how this might work three-dimensionally. It's going to be some sort of edge point there. You know, something like that. And so, you know, we can just start doing different versions. So we got that one back there. You know, let's remove all of this. Let's do sort of something like, you know, like this, where we've got, you know, just even more minimal kind of look to the bag, and you know, that's it. Maybe that's all we want. Move it back there. Let's do another one. You know, we got, there's infinite amount of shapes that we can do. So what I'm really doing with this bag is I'm just experimenting with different breakups, different part lines that we can do on this bag. Sort of different ideas for compartments and pockets and sleeves. Just really anything. Tighten that line up just a little bit. And, you know, we're just trying to get some ideas. Let's do maybe, you know, let's do like maybe one more. Can delete these lines again. And so you could imagine that this silhouette here that I've got, that I sketched in the beginning, is the sort of the architecture or the main shape of the bag that you're designing. But you want to explore different compartments or different sleeves, different openings. You can you can do this approach where you're doing all these different profile sketches, and you're just coming up with different ideas quickly, sketching them out, and then we can move on to the 3D phase using these sketches that took literally seconds to make. So let's do something kind of weird with this one. I don't even know what weird even really means, but something that's just, I guess what I mean by that is something that's just drastically different than what we've been doing. So maybe something a little more organic looking. Not really sure. Something kind of, let me just think here. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what this really means in 3D, but we can go with it. We can run with it, see what it looks like. And if we want to just connect this, so these are this is a separate, this loop ends right here. So if we want to just connect this really quick to itself, you can just click or switch on the loop button here, and so now this just loops around on itself. So maybe we're trying to do something interesting with this side bit here. Pulling this down. That's kind of interesting. And then maybe we can have interesting little sort of sleeves that come out of this bit here. It's kind of interesting. The thing is too is that we don't have to totally understand the bag in 3D when we're doing these, because and that's one of the things I want to make a real point here, is that in 2D often the problem is you're sketching something in 2D and it looks really cool in 2D. It's just like, oh, this is just the coolest backpack profile I've ever done, right? And then you start sketching it in 3D and you're like, oh, that's not at all what I thought it would look like in 3D, right? And so one of the great things about this is that you're spending about the same time as you would sketching in 2D, doing these little profiles, and then when we start pulling it apart, in 3D, we immediately see what our sketch looks like, in three-dimensional form, and then we're like, oh, that actually looks kind of nice, or you're like, oh, that sucks, let me just change that and edit it, and so you can solve those problems just so much quicker. So let's see here. I haven't checked their comments here in a minute, so let me just do that really quickly. Whoa, got lots of comments. Okay, so 1 second. Hello from South Korea, Costa Rica. Thank you everybody for joining. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for watching these tutorials. Let's see. Can you pick only 2 endpoints of the line and move them at the same time? At 2 endpoints of the line, move them at the same time. That's from Oppo Peninen. If I think I understand what you mean, so if I draw like a line like this, you got, you've got these two, you got this endpoint, you got this endpoint, right? And you want to move just those. So the way you could do that, so obviously you can select one, you can grab one and just move it. What you can also do is you can select two of them by trying to get them both into the selection sphere like this. And now I'm moving both the points. But the tricky thing is that um, if the line's like fairly straight, that's pretty much impossible to do with the selection sphere because it's a sphere, and it's hard to select just two ends of a line with a sphere. And so then the thing that you would want to do, which is something that people have been asking for, is multi-selection. So I select this point, and then I can go over here and then select this point, and now I have separate points selected. I can move them just those points. But for right now, that's the way I would do it. We are aware of multi-selection as a want, and so I believe the product team is looking into that. But yeah, that's how I would do that. Let's see here. Wheelchair. Oh, asking about modeling a wheelchair. That would be really cool. I think also we've done recently a video on a wheelchair, but we haven't released it yet. And so that might actually be good for that. But yeah, that would be wonderful. It'd be a great use case for ergonomics. And I think it'd be really cool. I've never actually designed a wheelchair before, so that would be really interesting as well. Do you have any plan to export files like .blender or other 3D program formats? So I think there might be plans in the product side to export it to different file types. As far as what those file types are, I am not sure. If you want to bring things into Blender, you can export your file as an OBJ folder. Or sorry, let me rephrase. You can export your model as an OBJ if you're a single user. And if you want to continue editing it in Blender or Maya or something like that, you can export it. So if you look here, if you go to export, right now I have these options because I have the sort of the business side of Gravity Sketch here. But for single users, you just have access to this OBJ here. And what you can do is you can actually export as rendered or as a control mesh. And if you export it as a control mesh, it will not subdivide your model. Therefore, you'll have like just the low poly version when you import it into Blender or Maya, and you can actually continue working with like control points and stuff similar to how you do it in Gravity Sketch. So you can actually work in Gravity Sketch and then export to Blender and continue working. I think we're going to do a quick tutorial on that soon as well, because I think it'd be really useful for people to know that. So that's what control mesh is. If you just leave it unrendered, it will take your smoothed out. So right now, this stroke geometrically is almost kind of like a sub D surface or object as well. I might be wrong on that. The product team would be able to better explain it. But right now, it's not really a super. It's not actually subdivided. It's kind of like pre-subdivided in a way. So this stroke, when I export it to Blender, I'm not going to have these control points anymore, because what it's going to do is it's going to subdivide this thing to make it actually smooth like this, and you're going to have like a bunch of little tiny triangles or little tiny polygons to make this smooth shape. And so that is what rendered means. Is it actually, when you export it, it subdivides your entire model and exports it as it looks in the scene, so as rendered, which is what that means. Yeah, so there's some other options here, but that's how I would do that. As far as other formats, if you have a business license or if you have an educational license, you do have access to these other file formats here as well, which is FBX. And with FBX, you get mesh and NURBS data to export. And then with IGES, that's better for a CAD program. So if you want to bring into SolidWorks or Rhino, Alias, this will be a great file format for that as well. So I hope that answers your question. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but just wanted to answer that. Is Gravity Sketch available on the Oculus Quest 2? Yes, the answer is yes. All right, so we're just gonna keep working here. So what we have right here is we have just some backpack profiles. And these are just really quick. And so what we can do is we can start going in here and pulling these. What I would do is I would just pull them apart, like the entire sketch apart. Actually, first, okay, let's do a little organizing here. So we've got everything just on one layer, but I want to do everything on another layer. So this is sketch, and then let's just make another layer. Let's see. I'm going to remove this one. I'm not really excited about it, so we'll go with these four here. Just put them in the middle of our scene, and we're going to just also go here and turn planar off. And so we've got these. And I'm going to also turn off the world axes here, so we can just see them plainly in our scene. What we can start doing is pull these out. And then we can start shaping like how these lines That's right. We need to get out of planar mode for these. So that's one little caveat here, is you need to actually go through each line, each stroke, and get it out of planar mode. Or else you won't be able to move it in 3D. And so actually, if you wanted to just skip the planar sketching process, you could sort of sketch in planar, but without planar turned on, and then you can move those strokes. All right. And so what I can do is just kind of start moving these. It's going to go in the center. And then I think I want to connect those together at the bottom. And then I'm going to take this line, connect it there, take this line, connect it there, another line here. And obviously these are, these bow out just a little bit, right? Because they're pockets. So we've got our backpack shape here. Move the line up. And so now we've got this 3D sort of, this wireframe of this backpack. And we can just continue tweaking it, getting that backpack shape. We got our got our little sort of like our straps here that extrude off of the bag. And so really quickly we've gone from a sketch to this, this 3D sketch really, and have now been able to see our design in 3D. So let me just get this out of planar. I'm just going to delete that because I don't really need that. Move it out. Kind of line that up just a little bit too. So we can tweak our design. So now that we're seeing it in 3D, we can tweak our design now that we understand what's going on. And so we can more finely address the design issues, the issues with our design. Is it really making sense in 3D? We can start adjusting some of these things to make more sense. These straps probably will come inward a little bit. And they're obviously going to have some shape to them as well. And so you can start laying out, kind of how some of the padding will go as well on here. Make some more lines. Make those bold. So in case anybody didn't know, if you grab a line, if you grab a point on a line, you can control the thickness of it. So if I grab this point and I move my joystick left, it will shrink it. If I move it right, it will grow it. So it just gives a little bit more it gives line thickness, and line thickness is really important with sketching because it emphasizes or de-emphasizes, a certain part of your sketch. So it's really useful in this stage of just sketching things out. And so what we can do finally is we can move these sketches out. We can shrink them just a little and give a little dimensionality to these sketches here. And bring these in just a little bit. All right, and so we brought in the sketch, giving it some dimensionality. Now we want this line to be a little thinner, so we can go to the stroke editor here and actually change the entire thickness of this line. There, something like that. And then we can do the same thing here. And then I think this is pretty bold. Let's maybe shrink them just a little bit. Bring those out. Do what we did before, just kind of shrink it. And so very quickly, we've got a three-dimensional representation, sort of wireframe sketch of our bag with the padding, Now let's move on to the straps here. So thinking actually, I'm going to move these out. I'm thinking of very kind of shapely straps. So actually what we should do is we just have the uniform strap, right? The woven strap. That carries throughout these straps here. And then we have the additional padded part. So that's going to be probably like this. Right. And so just thinking about things like that, you know, thinking about the details, thinking about you know, thinking about how this thing is going to be constructed. You know, we can start giving dimensionality to our strap that way. So you can make that a little thinner. And that's kind of a little bit thick. So now we're getting some dimensionality to our shoulder straps here. We can go in here to the pocket. Add that additional line for side pocket there. And then I would just draw this line to indicate where the pocket intersects with the backpack. And so this entire pocket is really this opening here. So let's see, I'm just curious to see how this looks. So if I just fill this in, you know, so that's kind of like the inside of the pocket. It's almost like we're looking at a reverse version of it. I'm going to turn all these other sketches off as well. Just so we can continue looking at this design here. And so let's see, oopsies. I'm gonna get those bits in there. There we go. Didn't all translate over. You know, so we've got our design here. And say we want to keep adding some details. You know, we want sort of a ribbed bottom, you know, because this bottom of the bag needs to be a little durable for the, you know, it's going to be laying on the ground a lot, probably. I mean, this is going to be the surface that touches the ground the most, you know, so we want We definitely want some tougher material down here. So you can just get that on there. And then we can just draw like a little, essentially a little part line that indicates the dimensions, the dimensionality of this ribbing detail here. So I'm imagining some sort of corrugated kind of look. Something like that, where it's kind of, it's kind of corrugated and ribbed in the bottom, just to give it some strength. If we draw like just a quick little stroke here, we can indicate that for each of these details. So now it's just a kind of another sketch indicator of that corrugated look. Just going to edit this, kind of fine tune this area. And so you can see here really that we've starting from that basic profile sketch, we've been able to really turn this into a pretty solid design direction, of a bag design. And And so we really have moved into 3D pretty quickly. And so what we can do is, you can export these, these strokes into whatever program you like, and work off of these strokes, and work on your final model. And you know that the design looks good in 3D because you've been designing it in 3D, all the way from a sketch. And you can just worry about fine-tuning the model. You don't have to worry about what it's going to look like when you print it out. What does it look like with someone wearing it? Because you could even put like the mannequin here, and like we could just, quickly do that. Grab the mannequin, put it around there, and then, bam, there you go. He's on his way to school. Right? So, this is a really great way. And then what you can do from here is, similar to our other sketches where we've had all these, these profiles that we worked off of, now we can take this sketch, duplicate it, and start working on another one. And so now it's all about this exponential workflow of starting, really, really quickly sketching something out, and then taking that sketch and turning it into 3D, and basically not losing any of your time. Before, where you've spent so much time sketching in 2D, you then have to almost recreate that in 3D, whereas all of your time is contributing to the final product in Gravity Sketch. Let me just check some questions here. Wayne, you're asking about a URL into Gravity Sketch to watch live and create. If you are using Oculus Home, you can actually click the Home button while you're in Gravity Sketch, and if you click your virtual desk, it's called Virtual Desktop. If you click that little button on the table that pops up when you turn on Oculus Home, I can't show you because it doesn't mirror. It doesn't mirror on the desktop screen here, but if you turn that on, and you can actually mirror your desktop in VR. And then if you look at the bottom right of that window, there's a little pin to experience button. If you click that pin, it's going to keep that window open in whatever your VR game or program you're using. And so it's really, really cool. So you could have like a video being played, whether it's this live or it's a recorded video on YouTube or whatever. You can have something playing and being in Gravity Sketch. Now, if you want to pause it or whatever, you'll have to open up Home again and then pause it with the mouse in VR. So you can click things also in VR on your screen. You just have to open up the Oculus Home window again. But yeah, I would use Virtual Desktop. Super, super good for that use case there. Luca Malasan, it would be nice to have some input smoothing feature that creates more or less points with Ink Tool. Yeah, so let me just show that really quick. So we don't have a sort of a smooth stroke option, but there are some other alternatives to that. So what you do have is, let's see. I guess with Ink Tool you don't have it, but with Stroke Tool you can draw using points. So this will just remain a straight line unless I click another point. And so if I click another point, you know, I'm controlling how many points this stroke has. And so it's really useful for that. That is not an option for the Ink Tool, but you know, could be a great additional feature. Another thing that you can do is if you draw with a stroke tool like this, and say it's like it's pretty hairy, right? It's got a lot of points to it. If I want to simplify that, I can click this Simplify Points button, and that will reduce the overall amount of points in that stroke. And if I click the Undo, it'll go back as well to the points. So you can go with this Simplify button, which helps a lot if you want to just quickly simplify something. So hopefully that helps you there. Reading through lots of comments through here, so just trying to see if I can answer some of them. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Julio Ryuzaki, you're asking how you can do an enclosure for Raspberry Pi or robot parts for servo motors. You could certainly design that. For that specific case, I would recommend that you have some sort of CAD or you have some sort of parts of the computer parts, like for example, the Raspberry Pi itself, the actual board. If you have a 3D version of that and you bring it inside Gravity Sketch, just so you have something to model around, and make sure it's coming into Gravity Sketch at 1:1 scale. Then you can actually model, surfaces around it and sketch around it, and you would, you could go from there. You won't be able to do any sort of like Boolean operations where you're like cutting holes and things out. For that particular project, I would recommend that you work in a CAD software of some kind, because of the tolerances that are needed with something like that. You can certainly flesh something out in Gravity Sketch and just sort of conceptually work through it in 3D. I think it would be much better in Gravity Sketch to just work through the different options that you could do. But I think the final geometry would be better suited for some kind of CAD program like Fusion 360 or SolidWorks. Would you? How do you import object one-to-one scale? That's a great question. Wonderful question. So this sketch, I did not work with any sort of scale with the sketch when I first started, so it's anything I bring in here one-to-one is probably going to be really big, but I'll just show as an example. So if I go here to the prefabs, we have this little box here. Select a prefab to preview import. And so anything you grab out of here and place into this box, it's going to, actually, it's actually not that far off. That's pretty good. So that means that this is at one-to-one scale. And so this is showing me what scale this model's at. So it's one-to-one. And I believe the human is, 5'9" or something like that. I can't quite remember. But just click the OK button. And so this model is currently in here at one-to-one scale. So if I take the measuring stick here, it's like 5'4" or 5'5" roughly. But it's giving me that measurement. And so you can do that where you can bring things in and then you can measure them, measure the distance between them. You can measure all these points, and these will stay in the scene unless you grab the tool again and start measuring something else. But it looks like we're kind of at scale with this backpack, which is pretty cool. So if I move my human down, move him over, we're actually, I almost feel like kind of dead on with the scale, this backpack there, which is actually pretty cool. So, what I can do here is I can, take the tool belt here, take the tape measure, and I can measure, okay, the width of this bag is, 11.3 inches long by 1.5 feet tall. So I'm getting these dimensions right in the scene. And so if I've got actual real world dimensions that I'm working off of and I'm thinking, okay, this needs to be actually within this certain amount of width, then I can take these, take these strokes and start moving them in, moving things closer together and getting it the way that needs to be in the real world. And so you can even check your design, in that way in Gravity Sketch. Which software do I use to make the live stream? I'm using OBS right now to stream. Actually doing some research into maybe some other programs that might be better, but currently just using OBS right now, which is a free software. Seems to be working out pretty nicely. You can also check out our quick tips for recording. And we got a video for best recording screen sharing practices for Gravity Sketch. You can check that out as well. I think someone has said to also please surface this. And so, yeah, I might do that. The goal of this, live wasn't necessarily as much to surface something, but to just show best practices for sketching. But I can certainly do like a quick little sort of demo on, how I would begin surfacing this. Let me just go ahead and delete this bag here. And so what I would do is, what I've found to be really effective is to bring in a cube like this, and obviously you want to give it some shading, and then convert it to sub D, grab this face and delete the face and connect these vertices together. And so now we have a symmetrical sub D surface here. And so what I would do is I would just start um, blocking in the sub D surface here, just like that. And so right now you can see it's pretty low poly, but if we bump it up, you know, you can see that it's, you know, just becomes a blob. And so actually this is a perfect example of what I mentioned earlier, what you'll be able to do if you export this as a control mesh out of Gravity Sketch into Blender or Maya, is that you can actually continue editing your model in this way. So it will export this sort of low poly mode as I'm doing here, and then you can continue working this way in Blender. So it's really nice for that. So maybe I want a little more dimensionality. Maybe want, you know, maybe I have this crease here. Got these parts, and so you can see it quickly comes kind of complicated polygonally. And so you just really want to make sure that you're staying pretty clean with your geometry as you work. And so, you know, what I would then start doing with this is, let me just make sure these are good here. What I would start doing with this is then building out the other surfaces. So I'm gonna make another layer actually really quick. Put this on that layer and, you know, just call it surface. And maybe it's already in there. And then just sort of hide it so we can kind of see our sketches. And, you know, then what I can do is I can start sketching out other surfaces here. So here we've got the pocket. Surface here. Or if you wanted it to be part of the main bag, you could do that. But technically the pocket is a separate piece, so, you know, you would model it as such, right? You know, then duplicate that, you know, connect them together, bring it down here, let's see, to this area, connect it there. Now you got your sort of outer pocket. So now you got your outer pocket. So it's just that's how I would start working, and use that same technique. You can also convert these to sub D and start doing even more crazy detail with them. You know, so if I turn off the sketch here, you know, this is kind of like the bag form that I'm starting to create, and then you can get really detailed with all of the like little, you know, the little zipper pulls and things like that. But yeah, that's how I would go about that. Let me just check any more of the comments here. I think we're also right about the end of our video, or end of our session today, but let me just check on some final comments. Do you think Gravity Sketch is sophisticated enough for architecture design? There's definitely many architects that have been using Gravity Sketch to block things out. Again, I think it's great for blocking things in. You can get pretty detailed. I think final architectural designs might be better in another program, but you can certainly block it out in here. And so the benefit that I think that Gravity Sketch provides in regards to architecture is VR. And so you're able to block in your designs at 1-to-1 scale in VR. And so you can almost like walk through your designs. You can model the pillars, the floors, the building itself, so all of those elements, and then that's 3D data that you can export to another program, whether it be, I think architects use SketchUp a lot, and they also use Maya and Max and even Blender, and begin using that as your sort of your final step. But we've also seen people use Gravity Sketch for final models as well. It just depends on how complex your model, your design is. But it's certainly great for blocking things in. Let's see. Yeah, love to see an architectural demo. Yeah, I think that would be really cool too. It's a really good idea for another demo for sure. So Julio, you're asking about cross-platform purchase, which is a great question. We've had some questions on that recently, especially with people getting the new Quest 2s. The answer on that is we're working on a more long-term solution, but for now, if you currently have a Steam version and you want the Oculus version, I email support@gravitysketch.com and basically show them a proof of purchase. So explain your situation and then show them a proof of purchase of buying from Steam and that you want the Oculus copy, and they can help get you set up with a copy from Oculus. But working on a better solution. So the idea with that going forward is that when you sign into Landing Pad, that should be able to grant you access to any copy of Gravity Sketch. I don't know if I phrased that right, but it's supposed to be all connected with Landing Pad in the future. And so I highly recommend if anybody's using Gravity Sketch to get yourself a Landing Pad account, because we're going to be relying on that for a lot more things in the future. That should help connect everything in the ecosystem a lot better. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I just want to so let's just recap what we've done here. So what I've done is I've turned on the mirror and I've begun doing these planar, sketches, and just did these really quick sketches that would, normally take me a couple of seconds to do in 2D. They took me about the same amount of time to do them in here, because just literally just free sketching and strokes. And then what we can do is we can go into, get out of planar mode for these strokes and begin editing them, pulling the points around, and taking our 2D sketch and seeing what it looks like in 3D, and then continue working. So now you can see we've got some, some shoulder strap detail, some back padding that we didn't see in the side view, but now that we have the 3D sketch, we can start working that out. We also added some sort of a ribbed bottom here, because that will be sort of a high touch area for the bag. And so we can begin working through all these problems and all these design problems and things we need to work out in 3D. And the great thing is that this sketch, as loose as it looks, is 1-to-1 scale. And so we can export these strokes from Gravity Sketch and keep working. And so that's the workflow. Thank you everybody for watching. And let me see, I can change the environment to say white, but before I do that, let me just make everything sort of like a grayer color, and then go to white. And so, sorry if this is a little jarring for anybody, but yeah, on the reverse side, we can have a white environment with black sketches here. So, and right now we have like a flat texture on our strokes, but if we wanted, we could go to like a basic texture and now I've got a little bit of shading, but it's pretty black, so it's hard to see the shading on these strokes. But anyway, this is just some best practices for sketching in Gravity Sketch. Feel free to bring in reference images as well, sketch off of those. But I hope everybody learned something, and please leave more comments after the video is posted, and let me know your thoughts. And happy to answer more questions after watching this video. If you weren't here for the live, but you just watched this and you have some questions, feel free to ask. Make sure to tune in. Tomorrow we'll be interviewing with Sofia Babkanova. Check that out. Tune in on Wednesdays. We're doing these live sketches, live demos. So open for any suggestions on stuff that we should cover. People had some good ideas here in the comments. So thank you to everybody for sharing your thoughts. But thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.